Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by my Action Network co-host Duck and Christian Odjakjian. We're talking college hoops at the midweek. That means we're going to get into Thursday, Friday games, maybe even a look or two ahead to the Saturday slate. But before we do and get into all of our best bets, I want to kick it to you first, Duck. You had some thoughts on the Arizona game. I had the Wildcats, had it locked in pre-Peterson's sniffles or whatever reason that the kid's not playing. I was like, oh, this is mince. They got off to a great start. I thought about it. I've had a couple lucky opportunities where I'd middle games this year. I saw Kansas like plus 9.5, plus 10. I was like, nah, there's no way they're going to get back into this. And then, of course, they win the game outright. But you had some thoughts beyond just their play on the floor. Maybe they had an extra guy or two in the zebra costume helping them out.
I mean, it's really hard for Arizona to go up against that 2-3-2 zone when you factor in the referees. I just don't know how anyone can sit back and watch that game and believe it was officiated fairly. Just seemed like down the stretch, every single call, every whistle went the way of the Jayhawks. You have guys battling on the block. Arizona would get whistled. And then you have Kansas on the other end that would perform similar sort of action or conduct, and no foul is called. You had so many empty consecutive trips for Arizona where guys were just banging in the post and we couldn't get a whistle. You had an Arizona guy that was blatantly hit in the face on a fast break, no call. The bigger picture is it's tough when you have teams that go long stretches in the second half without being able to score the basketball. Duke went through this, Tennessee, now Arizona. Really a lesson learned, or it should be for these teams. Playing timid on the offensive end in league play on the road this late in the season is absolutely trouble, and you're going to see teams rally and get back into it. I think this is exactly what Arizona deserves, and this is what they needed, I think. When you look at Arizona in totality of their season, we talked last week about them really needing some crunch time pressure situations, and that's what they got. Now they can at least look each other in the eyes and know what they have in crunch time. I think these moments are huge and will really help Arizona long term when they get deeper into the NCAA tournament. I'm not suggesting that they're going to win it. They could, but I just think that teams need to go through adversity, and they certainly had that on Monday night.
Now, Christian, you wanted to get into the bubble, which this is about the time of year where it really, the rubber hits the road. You have to start stacking wins if you're on the wrong side of the bubble, if you're a team like Virginia Tech, Ohio State, Cal, New Mexico. Also, I hate to bring it up, but if Miami were to drop two games before the MAC conference championship game, all of a sudden they would be in peril of missing the tournament as an at-large team as well. So it's going to get dicey for a lot of these teams if they haven't already been feeling the heat. Walk me through what you're seeing with the bubble right now.
There are some lovely Twitter bracketologists who are putting out bracket projections like so early, and I try to delay looking at bracket projections as much as possible. But now we're nearing a month out from Selection Sunday. I'm starting to take a peek at least where teams are standing. And what jumped out to me when I looked at the bubble is these teams, first four out, next four out, a lot of them are bad.
Quite bad. Yeah.
It seems like I think their narrative has been that the bubble's been weak, but I feel like there's been some teams like playing some really good basketball that got left out that we've been upset on the past years. And right now, according to Lenardi, first four out is Ohio State. Would like to see Bruce in the tournament. I don't think Ohio State is very good though. Cal, who we were speaking before recording, who 69th on KenPom, stole a couple wins, but do we think they're that good? Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, VCU, Seton Hall, Tulsa. Missouri is the one team with this group that I have circled as I really want to see them in the tournament. I think they're an actual high ceiling team, a team that dealt with injuries early on in the season, and a team that's trending in the right direction. And Seton Hall would be fun to get in there. That's a team that I think is more so on the deserving side than top, 30, 38, 40 team to get that spot. But just something to monitor when we're doing all these bubble discussions, and it becomes, the dialogue can be exhausting at times of, do we need to know San Diego State standing on a daily basis and how every single game impacts San Diego State? It's kind of like they're going to lose in the first four. So what's the point of going over this? But Missouri is a team that I'm tracking that I don't think will end up having to go to Dayton. I think they'll end up being a 8 through 10 seed. But I just emotionally sometimes I get tied to a bubble team as I would love to see them in, or can we not deal with this team in the tournament?
What do you think, Duck? I mean, there's arguments you can make right now, but for the most part, there's just work to be done. Certainly for the power conference teams, everything's in front of them. You can start stacking wins that the committee obviously gives preferential treatment to, as opposed to a team like New Mexico, where how many losses can you take? And really, it'll probably come down to how deep you can make a run in the conference tournament. It seems like the Lobos are going to need to at least get to the conference championship game if I mean, there's just not much in terms of impressive work that they can do for the committee between now and conference tournament time.
Well, these games become more and more magnified starting tonight with Ohio State, USC, Virginia Tech, Clemson, California, and Syracuse. There's just so many critical games, and teams are going to have to start stacking wins together. Missouri's an interesting case study because they have a real brutal stretch down the way where they have A&M, Vandy, Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi State. They'll have opportunities to play their way into the tournament, but Ken only has these guys winning one more game down the stretch. I think it's likely probably 4-4 or 3-5 in that stretch, but what you're going to get is a 9-9 conference record and 19-12 overall before the SEC tournament. And so is the committee going to be favoring a team with a profile like that, an athletic team, a team that can really extend the defense, a team that can get creative on offense to do some different things? Are they going to put Missouri in over Tulsa team or Miami of Ohio if they happen to drop 2 games? New Mexico's a real fascinating study as well. They've just gone through a tough 3-game stretch where their defense has really let the Lobos down against San Diego State in a game they won before losing the last 2. They have to play Grand Canyon tonight on the road. Who, if they lose this one, might seal the Lobos' fate because you can't have 9 or 10 losses in the Mountain West Conference and expect to get at large. So these games become much more magnified. They become more and more important. Every possession becomes important. Generally, from a betting perspective, that allows these games to trend to the under. So I'll be fascinated to see these 4 games that we talked about in tonight's action and beyond.
All right, I talked about Miami of Ohio briefly, and I just want to put this out there. Question for the panel. Do you know how many power conference teams have losing records straight up, more losses than wins, that are ranked higher in KenPom than Miami of Ohio? Christian, you're up first.
I saw your notes, but my guess would have been around 4.
Duck, how about you?
7.
We got 6 right now. Minnesota, Notre Dame, Wake, Northwestern, Ole Miss, and Providence. Providence, by the way, opened the Big East 2-9, let Cooley walk into the dunk, built a 16-point lead, then ended up blowing it in the final 10 minutes. I'm offended by KenPom. I love KenPom. It's a great tool. I use it. There's not a Gottlieb, speech that I'm going to give right now. But all of this, I mean, Haslametric has Miami of Ohio 91st, Torvik 79th, Mia 75th. I just think there's a flaw in the system. No matter, basically they're saying, no matter what you do, if you go undefeated, you can't be better than Providence. That's bullshit. It's just wrong. And you're allowed to move them up and then quickly move them back. This has been the kind of compromise that I put out there for the Red Hawks. If you want to put them at 60th right now, or put them on the 9 line, but then they lose a single game, because every single game moving forward in the regular season is a potential landmine. It's either quad 3 or quad 4 loss. So I understand the tightrope walk that they're on. But you can't say that winning every game doesn't matter. I mean, we just came out of the college football universe where it gets so frustrating, where you talk about quality losses or the grind of the SEC and all that crap. If a team goes undefeated, it's at the very least a good kind of mystery box, as opposed to Minnesota, Notre Dame, Wake. Talk me through Wake, head to head, Christian. What do you think about the Red Hawks against the Demon Deacons this year? And do you think it's justified that Wake is higher in KenPom?
Well, we have to remember that KenPom is a predictive metric, right?
Sure.
And there's a reason why Akron, in the same league with 5 losses, is up at 64th. And it's because, they went to Mackey Arena, only lost by 18. They played Yale on a neutral, only lost by 3. Lost by 3 at Miami, Ohio. Lost at Troy, and they lost to Murray State. It's really just compiling the data. I don't think it's possible for a team to go undefeated. I wonder how many teams, with the schedule that they have presented in front of them, could go undefeated and not be higher than this. And it's it's not like this is when you watch them play basketball, they're obviously a very, very good team. But would I pick Wake to beat Miami on a neutral? I would pick Miami, but Wake has better players. And Wake almost beat Michigan and Texas Tech. So, I understand why the predictive metric still has an 11-12 Wake team ahead of them, but it is frustrating to see. And honestly, the most frustrating thing about it to me is that Travis Steele everyone ran away from Travis Steele. He knew he had a good team. They were good last year. He brought guys back. He did it the right way. And no one wanted to play him. That's the biggest issue here to me versus the predictive metric.
Also,
That's such a huge element of it as well, is with Miami of Ohio, you factor in who they've played, who they haven't played. But Steele would benefit everybody to publicly release the list of Power Four and high major competition that they petitioned to play. I mean, they did their part by at least submitting the request to say, we'll play anybody, any place, and they get constant rejection notices. North Dakota State in FCS football found this same problem. They've only played 10 FBS foes in the last 10 years because nobody would play these guys anymore. There's no benefit to playing Miami of Ohio if you're in one of these high major leagues, because a win only just, okay, well, you should have won the game anyway. You have better players, but a loss really inhibits your resume. So it's really a shame for Miami of Ohio because they wanted to play multiple teams that were ranked and regarded as better than what the schedule called for, but they just got decline notices.
There's also another victim in this, which is the team that draws them. If they're misseeded on the 11 line. So think about this for a second. Louisville could potentially draw them and then have to draw Florida in the very next game. Whereas on the exact same line, Clemson could play Santa Clara and then Michigan State. Those are two different paths completely, two different, difficult, roads to hoe. And I just think this is kind of ridiculous, where if this is what the committee comes out with. Now, they haven't put out their bracket or their, mocked up bracket yet. So we'll get a little bit of insight into what they're thinking. But bracket matrix is almost always right on the money. They're within a couple percentage points, maybe a line or two for a team. If this is where it's headed, somebody on the 6th line is going to get absolutely screwed, or the 7 line. And then there's going to be other teams on that same exact seed line that are going to be the beneficiaries of it. So it's not just, I think Miami is getting shortchanged. I think it's also punitive in a way that's not fair to a team like Louisville to have to draw on Miami of Ohio. Just putting that out there.
You know what the craziest thing is, though? If Miami goes undefeated, I bet they're like a 7 at the best.
Right.
Right? But if they go perfect, do they get above a 7? Like, even if their KenPom gets up to 50, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, this is basically the entire analytics community speaking. And I think the last 5 years, you've seen the committee move closer and closer to following these metrics. So I don't think there's going to be a big surprise.
Except for Gonzaga.
Just sure. I think basically we're not going to see them get like a 4 or 5 out of nowhere and make that big jump up. Like, even if they were to beat Akron in the MAC championship game, and it's their second quality 2 win or third, Q2 win, whatever it is. I agree with you. Any final thoughts, Doc?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Miami finishes down the stretch. They're going to get every MAC opponent's best shot from here on out. What if they go undefeated, lose in the MAC title game to Akron, and then steal a bid? I mean, these guys might play in Dayton in the first 4. It's unbelievable to see the volatility and the variance as to where this team could possibly be seated, if not left out entirely, which would be a shame.
All right, before we get into our picks, I got one more rant that I want to get off my chest real quick, and you guys can feel free to hop in. But this is a shout out to our former director of audio here at Action Network, Matt Mitchell, who loved this phrase. When it comes to Rick Barnes, he's a born loser. He's coached 13 All-Americans in his career, including KD, and he's made 1 Final Four. That's 29 trips to the big dance, 13 All-Americans, 1 Final Four. But let's talk about the here and now and why I'm fired up. 2 double-digit second-half blown leads against Kentucky. You can't win either. I know that our BBOC live show on Saturday, Greg had the final leg of it, which was Tennessee. That should have cashed. They're up 6 with 4 to go against Georgia recently. The Bulldogs find a way to drag them to overtime. You score 7 points in the final 5 minutes and change against Alabama. That's another escape. I'm out on this team. If Ament isn't special, I don't think they're getting to the second weekend. I'm calling it right now. I think they're absolutely a candidate to get upset in the round of 64. Lenardi has them in the 5-12 matchup against Stephen F. Austin, a low major team who's really good defensively and can shoot threes at a 37% clip. Sign me up for that. Duck, what are your thoughts on Tennessee? I know it's a team that we talked about. Is it a buy low spot for them? Are they undervalued in the market? I'm just putting it on the record right now. A lot of positivity out of me this time of year for teams not on the Vols.
I mean, I don't like teams that play timid on the offensive end, and I don't like teams that can't find ways in crunch time to score the basketball. That was such a disappointing loss given how that game was trending and how they played the first 30 minutes of the basketball game. I'm not going to throw them out completely yet at this point, but it's a rivalry game against Kentucky in an environment that they generally struggle in, but we'll see. I need to see a little bit more from these guys when, they've got upcoming games against Vanderbilt, Alabama, Mississippi State on the road. It's going to be a little bit tricky for Tennessee the rest of the way, but I still want to see more. I want to see this team play complete complementary basketball, and I just don't think we've seen their best effort yet this season. So, we talked about them as a team that could have some value at 100-1. Yeah, maybe so, but TBD on them. I'm not willing to throw them out quite yet.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm typically real quick. I'm typically a Tennessee March fader. But when you zoom out a second, in the last 2 months, their only losses, 2 games against Kentucky they should have won, at Florida, at Arkansas, probably the 2 toughest games in the league. So I actually sprinkled on 15-1 Final Four on Tennessee. I was like one of the biggest Native Ment critics early on. I think a lot of people were, just when you have that high of a pedigree next to your name and you're just soft with the ball, missing open shots. When you look like you should be able to get whatever you want just with your God-given ability and your skill level, and then you're settling and taking bad shots, like you open yourself to that. And I'm like, Jacoby Gillespie is on his own, but I'm just looking at this team with their number 1 offensive rebounding. Jacoby Gillespie, while sometimes it seems like there's just too much on his plate, he's still an absolute dynamite guard. Like, he was unreal, for Maryland down the stretch last year too. Like, in the way Rick Barnes talks about them, I mean, say what you want about him, he still made back-to-back Elite Eights. Like, this is a team that, if Native Ment's averaging 26 a game, which he could the rest of the season, like, that is the Chaz Lanier Dalton Connect guy we're gonna defend at an elite level. This team is not top 5 defense, which is what we've come to expect from them. It's 16th right now, but if they can push the top 10, Amen can level up, and guys like Boswell can continue to just chip in and like hit a couple threes in those games. Like, Tennessee is a team that I wanted to write off, but I haven't been able to. But I'm cautiously in on them. 15-1 Final Four I thought was the best long shot Final Four bet that I saw.
I'm going to put this out there. The one positive silver lining, they have an ace in the hole when it comes to the committee. It's that win over Houston. And if they're in one of those spots where, like, did they get a 5? Did they get a 4 because of that? That continues to loom large, particularly if Houston goes off and wins the Big 12 conference tournament and, solidifies a 1 seed. That's something that could be a tiebreaker for them. Let's stick real quick in the state of Tennessee, Christian. I just want your thoughts on a team you were an early adopter on in Vanderbilt. You looked like an absolute genius. They were playing some of the best ball in all of college basketball. They hit a dip. Are they going to be able to get it turned around long term and really be playing at the kind of level they were early in the season, particularly on the offensive end? And if that is the case and they rev up that engine to a top 10 level, how deep do you think this run can go for the Doors?
Really good road win at Auburn. Auburn's a tough. Remember, they blew the doors off Arkansas when they came there. To me, it's a simple sell. As much as I love Tyler Tanner and as unreal as he's been this year, they are asking for so much of him, and he has had to force the issue offensively, and that's led to him getting to the line a lot. It's led to a lot of high point totals, but he's turning it over more, and he's just taking some tougher shots. People are forgetting that Duke Miles was like playing really, really well. And not only that, Frankie Collins is a 5th-year guard who averages 2 steals a game and gives them another ball handler. They would have 2 of those guys on the court at all times when they were killing everyone in non-con, right? Legs fresh, and it's not just about taking Tanner off the ball a little bit offensively. It's defensively. When they are undersized, the way that they are able to be an elite defensive team is because they have 3 elite small guards at ball pressure and forcing turnovers, and it allows it just lifts pressure off of guys like McLaughlin Washington to compete with bigs down low. It just relieves pressure from that interior defense, the defensive rebounding weakness. So it's so frustrating not getting these injury updates. Like, I even have some sources, and it's like we don't know. Like, we're going to check on Duke Miles' knee, but if Vanderbilt is at full strength, 1,000% live to make a Final Four. They are that good, and maybe these extra on-ball reps that Tanner's getting will benefit him. But it bothers me when people forget that context. So it is very important context that the reason they're playing so well is that guard rotation. Now they have 1 of the 3 point guards that they had before.
All right, before we get into our best bets, don't forget to sign up for Action Pro because it helps you get the best bets at the best prices. Action Pro users get real-time alerts as soon as experts like Stucky, Duck, Tanner, Christian, Duck, everybody on the team. As soon as we log a pick in the app, you're going to be able to get it. And a lot of these cases for the smaller, low major hoops, particularly when it comes to Duck and his totals, he is a market mover. So get real-time money percentages to see where the smart money is flowing and access to all of our player prop tools, which are only going to become more important during March because Dr. Nick Pear shoots in, gives all of his college basketball player props, and he is 100% a market mover. And it can be the difference between getting over 12.5 and over 15.5 on a point player prop. Right now, you can get $20 off an annual subscription of Action Pro. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20 to get started. That's promo code POD20 for $20 off at actionnetwork.com/pro. All right, let's get into our best bets here. We're going to go around the horn for our top plays on Thursday, Friday, even a couple looks on Saturday. But before we do, I want to throw this gauntlet down for you guys. I'm going to put $50 of my own money on the line, a home field gift card for the next person to sweep their picks here on the episode. And we're also going to add some more, prizes for the audience, for our listeners out there. It is soon to be March Madness, and Duck has a special March Madness of his own for our listeners. Duck, take it away.
Yeah, we really appreciate the feedback from our valued listeners. You are the reason why we continue to do this show, and we love seeing the 5-star reviews come in. So over the next 7 days, we're going to assess those 5-star reviews. Go into wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever that might be. Leave a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want in the comments, but I'm going to select a winner at random, and we're going to give that person a $50 future of their choice. Could be a conference future, a natty future, a parlay, whatever you want. $50 on us. Go ahead and just submit those reviews, and excited to see what comes of that.
All right, the audience, you've basically had their curiosity. Now you have their attention. With that attention, give us the ugliest under on your card. Let's start on Thursday night. Portland State, Northern Arizona, Big Sky under, lots of bricks, lots of slow it down, put the finger back up, let's run a new play here, reset the shot clock, all that. Everything that you need for some under porn to cash. Talk me through it, Duck.
Yeah, and Big Sky unders are such seat of your pants watches. It's just so terrible with the lack of defense played in that league. But Portland State has the top defense in the Big Sky per almost everybody's mosaic of metrics when you compile those together. They're first in the conference in effective field goal percentage, the top defense in the league in 2-point and 3-point defense, along with a real effectiveness and prowess for blocking and altering shots down on the block. Northern Arizona cannot score effectively, and the Lumberjacks play at the slowest pace in the conference, averaging 63 possessions per game. With this being the first of back-to-back roadies at elevation for the Vikings, they will oblige the pace here, knowing they have another one in Greeley at elevation on Saturday. Zach Davidson for NAU, been out of the fold for a little while, and the offense has just been less effective without him. More has been put on Carl Poom and Arnie Osaknik, who is they're just not as effective of players. And so it's going to be tough for NAU to operate. These two played a 62 possession game back in mid-January. It was a 63-52 final. So we kind of have a little proof of concept here for how this one's going to go. As long as Portland State can keep NAU off the foul line in this one, we should see a ton of empty possessions for the Lumberjacks, and this game should trend heavy to the under. So with the projection of 137.5 or so, we're going to dive in on the under.
All right, I'm going to stick on Thursday for a projected under, sitting at about 126.5 between Marist and Merrimack. Two turtles facing off in North Andover. Merrimack under Joe Gallo, by the way, one of the most reliably slow teams in the entire country. And his zone defense morphs to defend the three-point arc better than any team really at the low major level. Teams shoot below 30% from deep against Gallo's zone, and they only make 5.3 triples per game, which is the fourth lowest total in all of college hoops. Their lone issue, though, is rebounding on both ends of the floor. And in their first meeting with Marist, the Red Foxes grabbed 12 offensive rebounds. It could be 15 or 20 if they're not careful. But on the other side of things, Marist is elite defensively, the best in the MAC, 47th nationally per MIA, third in effective field goal percentage defense. I think this really just comes down to the whistles, because if you look at these two teams, they're both top 20 in charity stripe conversion rate. And I think that can be the difference here. You don't want to give out those free, points with the clock stop. So if I can get away with, let's call it 30 foul shots total in this game, I think we're going to go under the 126.5. I'm going to go ahead there in a low scoring MAC. I wouldn't say battle. It's going to be a defensive slog for sure. All right, Christian, I want to hear your first play. You're actually going to Friday. Talk to me about SLU.
St. Louis up to 24th in Ken Palm. the one loss in the season was a 1-point loss to Stanford. Not only are they beating everyone in the Atlantic 10, they're crushing everyone. They've only had a couple close games in the month of January. Now you're going to play the worst team in the conference, and KenPom has this at 22. When you look at, they beat LaSalle by 24. They beat Dayton by 31. They beat St. Bonaventure on the road by 25. They beat Richmond at home by 25. They beat Fordham by 20. You get the point. Whatever this line opens at, I just think that it's going to be too small. I don't think this is just a spot where I want to back St. Louis. They're so good. They're so fun. And it's like a buy game for them. I don't care if it's on the road. Like, there's levels to this. This is like, if the name wasn't St. Louis, if this was St. John's going to Loyola right now, right? Like, those teams are next to each other on KenPom. I would be happy to lay 22 with St. John. So I would play this up to 30. Blowout.
All right, Duck, for your next game, it's going back in time to Thursday. This is kind of a great sample case for when people ask me, how deep do you get into college basketball? If they're NBA fans, like, oh, I like a good Nick Laker game. I like a good Salukis versus Purple Aces Thursday night snoozer. I assume that you're on the under here.
Yeah, and we might get a bit of an elevated total here. The projected total is 139 between Southern Illinois and Evansville. And Evansville just played Illinois State to an 88-80 decision, and Southern Illinois has had back-to-back higher scoring affairs against Murray State and Indiana State, but this game should be a slog. What we have here are the two worst offenses in the Missouri Valley Conference. Southern Illinois ranks 10th per KenPom in the Missouri Valley in offensive efficiency. Evansville ranks 11th. Evansville struggles with turnovers on the offensive end. They turn the ball over 21% of overall possessions. And I look at Scott Nagy and the Salukis group. They have a fairly aggressive defense and should force Evansville kind of deep into the pit here on this end of the floor. It could be really tough for the Aces to handle the pressure, and we should see plenty of empty trips for them on this end. When I look at Evansville, they do not want to play fast. These guys have throttled down their pace significantly in league play. In the last month of the season, only overtime games against Bradley and Valparaiso have eclipsed 67 total possessions, and we've seen games play at 63, 62, and 58 possessions played. Southern Illinois held Northern Iowa to 50 points and Illinois State to 50, and this defense has the ability to hold Evansville to a similar number here. I look at Southern Illinois and Evansville in the battles played under Scott Nagy in 2021. The Salukis were 1-1. Those games finished 63-58 and 68-59. I think we get that here. I think this total is going to come out about 5 to 7 points too high, and you're going to want to be on the under in this one.
All right, I'm going a Friday night matchup. I'm hoping to get close to 13. Some of these projections are giving the Minutemen 13 points at Akron, and I'm going to pair it up with the same game parlay, also going with the over, sitting at about 163, 164. The Minutemen have been a team that have been on the cusp all season long. They've lost by more than 2 possessions once all season long. If you take out that 10-point loss on an off-shooting night against Kent, their other 9 losses this season have come by 3.4 points per game. Near misses against Marshall, Charleston, Ohio, Miami of Ohio, Coastal. All good teams that'll play some variation of postseason basketball. And UMass uses tempo. They're top 50 there. They use the 3 ball. They can get on the offensive glass and get second chance opportunities. Their guards like Banks and Parker are both around 40% from 3-point range. And Leo Batol he's playing like an all MAC, front court player. So there's a lot to like about this team. I feel like they've been a little bit snake bit in one possession games. And I think that this being a double digit number against an Akron team, I think is a little bit too much respect. I think it's based too much on their season-long resume. Because when you look at the Zips recently, their offense just hasn't been clicking. They failed to reach 70 points in 3 straight games, which is the only time that's happened all season long. So they return home here against an up-tempo team with a below-average defense in UMass. I think it's going to be an up-and-down game. I don't think I'm as worried about the total as I am potentially about Akron, maybe everything firing on all cylinders and then winning this game by 20. But if you can get 5-2 or better on the same game parlay, I think this is going to be a fun game. I think Akron gets close to 20 points in transition, and it'll just come down to UMass being able to bury the 3 ball on the road. But I think there's solid value in taking a team that is a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a beautiful brand of basketball. If you want a little bit of a palate cleanser, a chaser after taking all those unders with Duck on Thursday, I think this is the way you should go on Friday. All right, Christian, you're looking forward to Saturday with 2 games. Do you want to start Mizzou, Texas, or Iowa State, Kansas?
I'll start with Mizzou, Texas. Mentioned them in the bubble section as a team I want to see dance. And Duck pointed out that Ken Pom has them projected only to win one game the rest of the season, just with this gauntlet of an SEC schedule. They're projected right now to lose by 1 to Texas. Tonight, as of recording, Mizzou's got a tough one at A&M. Texas is off. This week, Texas will enter this one with off 3 straight wins. And like I said, getting that bye. But when I look at these two teams, I see two teams who excel in similar areas in terms of crashing the offensive glass and getting to the free throw line. Big, athletic, strong teams that are offensive minded. But what's interesting to me about Mizzou is under Dennis Gates, something wild about Dennis Gates, dating back to when he's at Cleveland State, they were outside the top 300 in defensive rebounding percentage, whether he was at Cleveland State, whether he was at Mizzou. And mind you, he made the tournament 3 of those 6 years I'm speaking of. So it's like, what is up with this dude? Why can't his team's defensive rebound? This year, they're at 155th in the country, which is a huge increase. And if you filter how Mizzou has been guarding in SEC play, they're the 4th best defense in SEC play. The offense has dropped down to 12th, but personnel-wise, like Mark Mitchell's, whether you like the aesthetics of his game or not, and trust me, it's taken time for me to come around on him. Like, I would just like to go against him. He leads his team in points, rebounds, and assists. He's top 30 in the nation in free throw rate. He sucks to play against. He's a matchup problem. Jaden Stone's one of the best stories in the country to me. Coming over from that Detroit Mercy team that won 1 game. He's a really good scorer. Trent Pierce, the sniper. Jacob Cruz is a sniper. Anthony Robinson had NBA buzz going to the season, is a beast defensively. And I like what Tio Berg is. And I just think they got a lot of dudes. Like, they got good players. They're defending better. And at home against a team like Texas can't bully Mizzou, right? In the way that, like, Texas bullied, say, a Vanderbilt when Texas won that game by 16, right? And like, for even with the extra rest for Texas, I just think it sets up nicely for Mizzou to, they know the situation. They know that they're trying to get to the tournament. And when you play a team similarly ranked at home, that's the one you got to get in a good environment. I'm comfortable backing the Tigers there. Should be close to a pick 'em. I'd lay anything up to a possession.
All right, Duck. Miami of Ohio, we've talked a lot in recent weeks about them. They finally got off of that roller coaster where they were digging themselves holes or sneaking out wins. They get into the SBC MAC, challenge against Marshall, blow the doors off the Thundering Herd. Now they come back Friday night home game against Ohio. But you think maybe they're giving away too many points in this one?
I do. An old football rivalry between these two, the battle for the bricks. And this is going to be one that Ohio really shows up for. The projected spread is Ohio catching 13.5 or so. And I really think we're going to want to be on the bobs in this situation. We know Miami is going to get everybody's best shot, and the Redhawks have played really tight in their last 5 games in league play. We saw a 3-point win against Buffalo in a game that went to OT. Miami trailed a good portion of the way in that one. A 6-point win against Kent State that was also an overtime affair. They trailed by 5 with 2 minutes to go. A 2-point win against UMass, a team that you like, in a game that Miami was down by double digits in the first half, and they never led by more than 7. And then you and I were watching this one together. Miami played Northern Illinois, a real bad Northern Illinois team. Yeah, they won by 24, but they were down by 10 in the first half, and they were trailing with 11 minutes to go. They did scrap together a 38-9 run the rest of the way, but Ohio is not going to give that up. And I look at Ohio, they've got some shooters. Javon Simmons can score 15 to 20 points on any given night. Pavelski, really good at creating and getting open shots and getting to the foul line. Aiden Holloway, AJ Sheldon, just guys who can score the basketball and match Miami and what they want to do on the offensive end. I think Ohio is going to be able to effectively defend well in the painted area. Miami is a really beautiful offense to watch, but they're not exceptionally strong in the paint. And if shots aren't falling, this could be one that's really, really tight late here. So 13 or so, you want to back Ohio in this situation.
I said Aiden Holloway for a second. I'm like, it's a good midseason pickup for Ohio.
All right, on Saturday, the Nashville Showdown. Talk about a random matchup between an ACC and Big Ten school, but Virginia is playing the Ohio State Buckeyes in Nashville. They're laying anything below 2 possessions, 4.5, 5.5, I think is a play here. I unabashedly love Ryan Odom. Dude is a winner, from Lenore-Rhine to UMBC to Utah State BCU. He arrives, his teams win. They're ultra competitive on both ends of the floor. There's not necessarily kind of a gimmicky calling card from a tempo or trapping or, offensive, scheme standpoint. They're just well buttoned up everywhere. They're so disciplined in the half court too. They don't take a lot of bad shots. 4 starters averaging double digits. they're super aggressive on the glass. I think that certainly helps in, what you've seen in the past month. They haven't shot the ball particularly well, but that offensive rebounding has really allowed them to stabilize their scoring. DeRidder has it all offensively, and with shooters around him, when they collapse in, he can make them pay by passing the ball out. But really, to me, in this particular spot against the Buckeyes, it comes down to the Wahoo's defense. They're just fantastic. They're top 10 in effective field goal percentage defense. They rarely send teams to the line. And they're finally rebounding up to Odom's standard on the defensive glass. He's brought this up multiple times in the last few pressers. Ohio State, by the way, on the other side, there's only one win on their whole resume that really impresses me, and that was that win over UCLA. They did it at home. They shot 53% from the field. They also went 20 for 25 from the charity stripe. So how much is that something that they can replicate, particularly on a neutral floor? When Mobley and Royal are bombing in threes, they can beat people, and I'm interested in them catching points as a home dog. But when you're asking me on a neutral floor against an elite three-point defense in the Wahoos, I just don't see it. I'm going to go ahead with the Cavaliers here, like I said, up to the edge of 2 possessions. Any thoughts there, Christian? I know the ACC has kind of been your beat.
Not really, honestly. I was locked in on this Iowa State Kansas game that I was about to talk about.
All right, fire away. Talk to me, because I think this takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to come right back to the Cyclones in a spot like this, particularly with Kansas flying high and assuming they get Peterson back. But walk me through why you like Iowa State and Coach Otts.
Yeah, so Iowa State's won 3 straight years over Kansas at home, haven't lost at home this year. And to me, what's so interesting about Iowa State is, metrically, there have been periods of time where they've ranked as like a top 3 offense in the sport. And then there's in their last 2 games, I tweeted out this stat. Non-Milan Momcilovic Iowa State players are 2 of 18 combined from deep in those last 2 losses. When things get bogged down the half court, yes, Taman Lipsey can make threes. Yes, Joshua Jefferson can make threes. Momcilovic, it sometimes feels like he's the only shooter on the team, right? The guy who, if he catches the ball and he's open on the perimeter, like, it's going up. But Iowa State looks best when they are out in transition, right? When those guys like Bateman or Toure can get involved, knocking down those threes. But defensively, they scored 55 points against TCU. I understand Kansas has been great defensively. Obviously, they were great defensively in their 84-63 win over Iowa State. They've won every game since in the past month, but really, really difficult place to go play. And in that Arizona game, as Duck pointed out, got a little help with the refs. Flory was brilliant, and Melvin Council was doing some Melvin Council things, just getting to the line or beating everyone down the floor in transition. Like, that kind of stuff doesn't happen against Iowa State. I can't see Melvin Council alone creating for himself against this Iowa State defense. I think Iowa State could win this game by double digits with or without Darren Peterson. I'm all Cyclones. I would lay up to 6.
Now, before we get out of here, we're going to run through our best bets of the show, our favorite play from midweek. And Duck pulled a fast one, sneaky. He kept this one on the side. He's saying it could possibly be his favorite play of the entire week. Talk me through a Sunbelt total between South Alabama and Southern Miss.
And we're not even going to make you call the 1-900 number for this one. We're going to give it out here on the show. South Alabama and Southern Miss, the projected total is 138. South Alabama has one of the most efficient and effective defenses in the Sun Belt, one that's just consistently able to frustrate its opponents. Richie Riley throws out this junk 2-3 zone, and it really frustrates teams that can't shoot over the top. Southern Miss is going to counter with a middling tempo. These guys cannot shoot the 3 ball. 29% successful 3-point rate in league play, the worst in the conference by wide margin. To make matters worse, the Golden Eagles, they don't secure offensive rebounds. The result is going to be them having to be methodical, getting deep into the possession clock, having to chuck up a highly contested 3 that's a low percentage shot, and then getting back on D the other way. South Alabama, they are going to play at one of the slowest tempos in the conference and in the country. 320th nationally in tempo are the Jags. These guys have really missed Peyton Law, who's been out of the mix for some time with injury, and the offense has just been stressed as a result. I look at South Alabama. They're not going to crash the glass here in this one, and the Jaguars are one of the worst shooting teams in the entire Sun Belt Conference. Southern Miss has the 3rd most effective defense since Sun Belt play started per KenPom. per his aggregate efficiency metrics on defense, and South Alabama is the second most efficient defense in the Sun Belt. This one pits two teams that are going to have to be methodical on the offensive end. They're both going to have to rely on settling for contested threes deep into the possession clock, and that is not what these teams want to do. South Alabama's three-point rate is 293rd nationally. Southern Miss is 353rd in three-point rate. So these teams are going to have to operate at a way they're not accustomed to. You're not going to see a lot of foul shots. You're not going to see a lot of activity in the post. This is going to be played at 62 to 64 total possessions. I will be stunned if either one of these teams reaches 70. So at a projected total of 138, this is my favorite play of the weekend.
All right, I'm going to throw in my under on Marist and Merrimack. It was 123 total points in their first meeting, 49 foul shots in that game. This is going to be a defensive clinic for Marist, certainly from Joe Gallo. I know what I'm getting. Slow tempo. I wouldn't be shocked if this tapped out at like 112 points. It's something where if we don't get the super foul-a-thon in the last 90 seconds where they're just a parade of foul shooters going back and forth and some of those garbage points, I think this one is also one of my favorite totals for the entire week. Christian, you're going to close this up just reiterating your point on Iowa State.
Yeah, one last point on this game. Kansas on the road in Big 12 play. Lost at UCF, lost at West Virginia. You go beat Colorado and Kansas State, two of the easiest road games in the league. Then you got to play Texas Tech without Christian Anderson. And you should have lost that game by double digits. Texas Tech was up 10, late in that game. So this league is so insane. The Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Arizona, BYU, Texas Tech I was about to say this is like the hardest road game in it. I would maybe put it second after Kansas themselves, but Kansas can't go play themselves. So this is the toughest road game that they've got all year, in my opinion. And I just think stylistically, Iowa State can make Kansas you got to hit threes to beat Iowa State, right? You got to be able to hit those skip passes and take advantage of that aggressive defense. And I still don't super trust Kansas' shooting. If Bryson Tiller knocks down 5 threes or Trey White knocks down 5 threes, like, so be it. But I think Iowa State, I'm excited to lay the points with them. I think this is a statement win for them.
All right, Cyclones laying the points. Jags, Golden Eagles under about 139, 138 there out of the Sun Belt. And then my Marist Merrimack under 126.5. Put it all together, should get about 6-1 on your money. Those are our best plays if you go ahead and parlay them together. That'll do it for this episode of the Big Bets on Campus podcast. My special thanks to Duck and Christian for joining me. Don't miss the BBOC weekend preview with Stuckey, Greg, and Jim on Friday mornings. The three-man weave earlier in the week as well on Mondays. And then, of course, our live show is back and better than ever. So make sure to check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you can so you don't miss out on anything that we produce here at the Big Bets on Campus podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets. We'll see you at the window.